Hello and welcome to the Discover Tai Chi podcast. My name's Helen.
Hi, my name's Phil and welcome to episode 4. We're really excited to be joined by Richard Leigh, a chartered physiotherapist with over 34 years of experience in musculoskeletal therapy. Richard, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So let's get started. Could you tell us a bit about your journey into physiotherapy and what led you here today?
Right. Well, Helen, what I did, I worked rotationally after my basic training in an NHS hospital, about 7 or 8 years. So I did many areas in the hospital. I worked with neuropathic pain in the pain clinic. I worked as an acupuncturist, but before I did specialised in musculoskeletal. I did rotational training. I did in really all the areas like cardiac rehab, hand therapy, respiratory, stroke. So I had a pretty broad basic training for about 2 years. Then I specialised in musculoskeletal. So you get to see people in all sorts of situations, lots of difficult situations, some very relatively straightforward things in musculoskeletal. And it's quite tough. You're taking on new information all the time. You're thrown at the deep end. So I began to probably develop a holistic approach from working in all those areas and understanding all these systems in the body. It's quite a lot to take in, especially in somewhere like intensive care, which is a very acute area. And so I did about 8 years in the NHS. And then because I'm very hands-on, I'm not really a management person, although I did get to senior 1 level and I had people that I supervised. But I went into private practice. I did some NHS work within my private practice, but I'd had a pretty broad range of experience. I worked with a rugby club, with athletes, Amateur Athletic Association athletes, treated dance students. A lot of the time it was because people didn't want to treat some of these athletic people because it's quite demanding and they got a lot of complex problems. So I was probably just filling a gap. But I worked with professional dancers from 1999 at registered with Dance UK. So some of these sporting areas are so... You do really see the integrated structure when you work with people like that. And you see some bad injuries as well. So you're constantly looking for things that really work, not just doing sort of automatic things, or you question what you've been taught. So it was quite a roller coaster ride, let's put it that way.
Wow, yeah, it sounds intensive, and yeah, like I say, you've done a lot of reflecting, thinking about the tools that you've got, the skills that you've got. Can you tell us what drew you towards Tai Chi and qigong?
Well, because I'm very hands-on, and I've got quite a deep understanding of structure. Really, I've seen 17,000 patients. I've done a lot of hands-on, a lot of talking, a lot of questioning. I've been lucky to meet at various times people that have helped me a lot, including yourselves, that I've kind of had a more of a holistic approach, to what people are like and what their body type is, and began to realise that a lot of the integrated structure, there's a lot of linked pathologies in the body. People come in with one thing, but actually there are things that relate to that because of the complexity of structure. So very holistic, and I kind of was lucky that in the 2000s I did probably something on reflecting, thinking about doing this today. I did some acupuncture courses, and I did a lot of the work that was promoted by Helen Langevin in the early 2000s. My tutor had trained with her, and that was looking at neurofascial structure and the connectivity. And that gave me an interest in the bodywork, the American bodywork that was coming in. of Myers, and particularly John Barnes is about 93 now, but they're people who get their hands on and feel the reality of structure is underneath your fingers. And so I was kind of, as a bedrock, you use your basic physio training to assess people, look at the neurology, do all the testing and things like that. But then you start to understand how things are linked together, and then you can have a better influence on outcomes, even with simple things. But with people who've got complex problems, or they've got really chronic problems, things where everybody's tried to sort them out and it's not worked. And just with the mileage, with just seeing people, you begin to understand integrated structure. Always the problem was getting compliance with exercise, getting people to do the backup work, because you don't want it just to be passive work that you're doing. You only see them an hour a day or an hour a week or half an hour a week. That you need them to change their behaviours and do things that to help themselves. And some of the exercise approaches, some of the standard things within physio, and even sometimes in other exercise areas that I do respect, like Pilates and yoga, they often were not helping really these pathologies, these linked pathologies enough. There's too much stretching and a lot of non-compliance with patients, because you give them things to do. Sometimes some of those exercises might even hurt them slightly, and they wouldn't always do them. There was always a struggle. People told me, I've been to acupuncture conferences, and they'd had qigong and tai chi. Had classes, and I'd seen this a few times. And a few years ago, I was doing tai chi like movements, being playful with exercise, and then I started to take an interest in it, and I watched some DVDs and YouTube videos and things, and then I thought, well, I've got to train in this, and that's last year I did with you guys. So it's been very good.
Oh, that's fantastic, Richard. I guess if we had some critical listeners listening to this podcast, Richard, some may kind of raise a question of, okay, so how does this very sort of deep and broad understanding of practice align with maybe some conventional physiotherapy principles?
Yeah.
And how they might fit with the kind of general evidence base in physiotherapy. Some people may be curious, maybe some people may be a bit critical in some respects. How would you kind of talk to those people?
I think if you've done, very broad training, you've done neuro, you've done respiratory, if you've looked at lots of parts of the body, you do take it all in. You realise that the flowing movements in Tai Chi do a lot of spatial opening. That there's many reasons. I'll outline some of these mechanisms, and there's a lot. It really touches everything. I think within mainstream musculoskeletal physio, things have changed a little bit. I did these courses. I did a Mackenzie course, 30 years ago, and some of these courses are not available. But I did MACP, which is the Manipulation Associated Chartered Physios, which is Maitland, and I did Syriacs as well. I credentialed in that. So they are they have a certain evidence base. I mean, they haven't really got a lot more evidence base than Tai Chi and Qigong. And it depends very much on how you're taught and how much your tactile and your awareness is, your skill. But a lot of the principles, some of the teaching around that, about self-management, lengthening the spine, which is what Qigong is partly about, keeping the spine open, probably what musculoskeletal physio is about, keeping the spine open. you working in manual therapy, you're working gradually up through the grades, a little bit like how you progress qigong and tai chi. But a lot of the sort of peripheral advice you get when you do core physio courses fit in really well with the principles of Tai Chi and qigong. So you're allowing healing to occur. You've got to be very careful with manual therapy, people. It takes a lot of skill before you use it correctly. People can use really tough thrusting techniques. They can go beyond the elastic limit, which you never do in Tai Chi and qigong, of course. Probably one thing that quite aligns with Tai Chi and qigong is Mackenzie, which are very benign, gentle, remedial movements that open the spine off, and they can reduce discs, and they're very skilled, very clever stuff. So I suppose I've used Mackenzie movements, Australasian physio, a lot as cell treatment. So probably that was, you can see how that leads, you can, if you understand that, you can see how Tai Chi and qigong can work, because it's changing the body gradually.
Fantastic.
So I was interested before when you mentioned, how you've got a really short time, even in private practice, you have a short time essentially with patients, don't you? And
you've got to get it right.
Yeah, even less in NHS settings, but perhaps sometimes, there's throughput. Like I say, there's a lot of time that patients have on their own that they could be doing something. And I know you've mentioned that you've opened a Tai Chi class as well. Was that in response to that, to be able to give them other, like say, they can do Tai Chi at home, but you've opened the class as well, I believe. Is that?
It worked for when I'm treating people, because I've done it such a long time, I can do things pretty quick, because I can, having done those integrated courses, the Myers and Barnes, where you're doing body reading, you've got to understand body reading. You've got to look, and you can see where the lay of the land, what's going on, which is why I find fluency with Tai Chi and qigong, because I can see visual things. But I think having being very hands-on, and when I treat people, I'll assess them and teach them and treat them at the same time, because I've done it so long. Finding something I can quickly do, like we'll talk about chi breathing later on. It's not very, it's quite nice if they've got neck shoulder problems to just teach them that quickly and put it in early on, or so I've just weave it in with what I do. So I've started to use it as a tool with the way that I work. And then doing your course, because I never thought of taking classes. I haven't taken classes for 25 years when I used to do PAN group and spinal care group and things. But getting to people like the Tai Chi and qigong, they didn't always want to watch a Don Fiore DVD, and they encouraged me to do it. So when I finished your course, I was lucky. I managed to, somebody pointed me in the direction of a hall where I could do it, and asked a few people, and I took the plunge. It's quite scary, but it was quickly, by being relaxed and just having a go, because people are very amenable to classwork, and they don't know what they're doing either. And gradually you just learn together and it builds up.
Fantastic. I love that description of, like, say, it's a real collaborative approach sometimes, can't it be, in a class setting? Not only have you got peer support among people that may be self-managing the same similar conditions, but like say, you're learning your way, you're all learning through Tai Chi and Qigong. And I think for me, that's the joy of it, is that Tai Chi is a journey, and people join you for some time on that journey. Whether you're the one supposedly leading or not. I think there's something about teaching that allows you to deepen your knowledge as well.
I think it was very rewarding, because I've always liked it when I treat people. I like them to understand what's going on, So they really do understand about neurodynamics, and I explain it. Lots of people can, they need it. It helps them to understand and to get the self-management right. But but actually, it's very rewarding teaching, and I'm just starting my class up again. I had a 3-month break during the summer, which I think is sometimes wise. But I did it for 9 months straight off every week, and it was a real uphill curve. And it got to be, we started off tentatively moving up. And of course, they all improve. And probably jumping the gun a bit, but it was difficult when new people join. And it's only a small class, varies from 8 to 15. It's very difficult to handle more than that. But I remember asking Phil about this, about how you bring new people in and things. And you're going always back to relatively simple short form, and there's so much depth to it. You don't realise what the depth is, and you're doing it with them, and it's very valuable. And I get people I had a lady this morning who's had cancer. She had a radical surgery, and she's had this terrible neck break, nerve damage down the right arm, trapped nerves for several months. And I've done the work on her, but I just taught her for the first time this morning to do qi breathing. She's a very anxious person. She's been through a lot, and it's in her structure as well. And she straight away took it on and did it right. And I said, does that feel nice? And as her arms came down, she felt this lovely feeling releasing. So it makes compliance better. It's very effective. It works well with what I do, because if I've gone to a lot of trouble to work on somebody's neck and arm and release the nerves up and do all these things, I don't want them to go and mess it up over that time. So I want to give them something to do to help. Yeah, so it's interesting.
It's interesting that kind of example of that kind of little case study there, Richard, because you mentioned some interesting effects there in terms of the nervous system, and I know you've kind of got quite a bit of knowledge and experience in the kind of neurodynamic area of physiotherapy. So I just wondered how you think sort of Tai Chi and qigong movements align with that neurodynamic theory of practice.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite important because you learn early, even in Maitland, about testing nerve tension and doing neurodynamic tests. And you mobilize people and you might, work on the neck or something, and the neurodynamics slightly improve. And nerves can get very adherent if you get a disc problem in the neck, and the nerves can stick and get very tight. And you can get real problems with nerve mobility over a long time, particularly if people don't get the right treatment early. And the exercises for that classically are very two-dimensional. Neural exercises, reaching out, the radial nerve, flexing the hand back with a straight arm, and they probably improved a little bit over time. But I've started not to use those so much, because I realised even dance and other forms of movement often had just as good effect, if not better. So a couple of years ago, when I started doing some Tai Chi and qigong, I started to use some of the qigong and Tai Chi, particularly the qigong forms, because they seem to improve the neurodynamics better, quicker, and there was more compliance with it, because to lie down and do some of these neurodynamic exercises that require lying down, you go into strange positions where they're just two-dimensional. But when you use some of the qigong forms, it's very flowing. You're using other parts of your body, to open up. Now, the Chinese must have worked this out empirically, but it's, they're really very, very good. I mean, with something like qi breathing is very good for opening the brachial plexus, for opening the neck up, opening the upper ribs up, where you get a lot of contracture. And so some of these Tai Chi forms, they really open multiple structures up. So they're very three-dimensional. And I think people should try it, because I'll give some examples later that they have a very, very quick effect and multiple effects as well. And doing just a nerve stretch, which is really pulling at the nerve. It's not wiggling it free like you might do with a complex three-dimensional movement to touch or qigong. That's just a nerve stretch might slightly traumatize the nerve. It's not going to relax them very much. You're not going to get all these benefits that you do. And I've been breathing into this as well. I bring a lot of things, which of course is part of touching qigong.
Yeah.
So it's something about, it sounds like there's a lot of effects going on at the same time, and it's something we, like say, we introduce on our course in terms of you've got these 3D dynamic structures, or and we've got the breathing incorporated, and like say, we're looking for that mindfulness rather than just going for a stretch. We're looking for that mindfulness, or that slow awareness that's building that proprioception. So like you say, you're not just going to the end of range and then out of it again. We're kind of really building on awareness. So there's lots of different things going on. But I wonder if you wanted to talk about any other case studies that you've had where you felt like Tai Chi has really kind of worked together with your approach already, or any cases that have stood out for you.
Yeah, I'll sort of talk about qi breathing. What I was saying about neurodynamics is that when you do the some of the Tai Chi forms that you can do that are like standard neural stretches, but they're more flowing and there's more of the body involved, you're opening that region up a lot more, generally, not just pulling the nerve. You're breathing, you're opening the ribs up, you're freeing structures in the neck. And of course, I can palpably feel that and measure it. I've got all tools to measure it. And the patients will tell you anyway. So it's real. I have to deal with the reality of structure. But I looked at three things, and I'm lucky I had this lady this morning when I was doing qi breathing. So I do get complex cases, and that's where, having worked in oncology, I used to do work on medical cancer surgery, on scars and things like that, and respiratory and all these different areas. I do get people who have more than one thing. I mean, they'll come in and they've got shoulder, neck nerve problem. The nerve is really bad brachialgia. I mean, you don't want them on gabapentin. You want to get them out of it, and they've got to get involved. So I was saying earlier, I had this lady this morning with driving her mad. I mean, she'd been to A&E twice. I mean, that's a lot of money wasted because she was so anxious, with raging pain. She was given the wrong things to do. We won't say how, but she was given the wrong things to do. You can provoke nerves very badly by doing the wrong kind of exercise or heating them, or, and I must say that obviously touching qigong is mostly safe. There aren't so many of the risks with it, which is what I do like, because you mustn't do any harm. You see, that's the thing. But with qi breathing, there is such a lot. I could think of that lady. You get lots of people in skilled trades. I get a lot around, because I'm rural. I get people like tree surgeons and roofers that have chronic problems in their arms and radial nerve and things, and struggling from week to week. And they're very down to earth people. They want to know what to do, and if they find something that's really helping them, they'll do it. So with qi breathing, which I'm very impressed with, it's one of the form that I would use so much clinically with people. That movement mobilizes and gently opens the shoulder joint and the shoulder girdle. And when you abduct up to the side, you're isolating supraspinatus, which is the stabilizing muscle in the rotator cuff. You may not be using weight, but you're doing it slowly. It really isolates and strengthens the shoulder. And then this sun letting go principle encourages this eccentric muscle activity, which is very releasing. And the breathing and the abduction, lowering movement releases the upper ribs under the axilla. And that's a very important area, because between the ribs, you've got neurovascular bundles. So if the ribs are tight, you're generating more tightness. It's like a downward spiral. So you want to turn that round. So chi breathing is a remarkable exercise. And hunch postures, people with neck, shoulder, brachial nerve syndromes, that's such a benign, such a non-harmful movement, but it brings so many benefits. It's got to be taught right, because people can do it incorrectly, and you can adapt it. You can bring the arm forward if they've got pinching inside, if they haven't got rotator cuff control. And then I would bring coherent breathing in with that. So, the exhale is much longer, 4-6 ratio breathing. And that just relaxes the body, and there's much less internal resistance to movement. It's very calming. So breathing is really a great thing with Tai Chi Qigong. And I know you use it with breath-driven movement, like fanning the wind and things like that, to train the body and get the rib cage working with the movement of the body with a kinetic chain. But I think, chi breathing is physiologically is very clever movement. It's very useful to treat a very difficult area.
So just wanted to talk about some of the other movements as well that you found. I think when we've been chatting to you, you've enjoyed using the 8 strands of the brocade. That's a simple sequence when you first look at it, but you found it quite useful.
Right? But 8 brocades is very interesting, and also the stepping and the bow styles. But with the 8 brocades, I teach those in my class. I mean, we started off just by doing 2 at a time, and that's where the people get very attached to these movements, because they're very opening, they're very pleasurable, they're doing a lot, they're aware that they're releasing a lot in their body. And of course, it is difficult. In a class, you've got people with lots of different pathologies and things like that. You've got a mixed bunch, ages and things. So you've got to be very careful. But some of those really ancient forms, because I've worked in integrated structure, in neurofascial structure, and the fascial planes or fascial lines, I've seen in a lot of these brocades, the 8 brocades, that you're working on groups of different fascial lines, and it's very important. So if I've got somebody where they've got an anterior line contracture, or they've got a plantar contracture, and I've opened that up with my hands, or I've used acupuncture or whatever to open that up, and with the acupuncture, I've been doing that since the early 2000s. Then I want to give them something that's going to help that to remain open. And so you can select, a couple of the 8 brocades, or give them as a group. I mean, that's not so easy for an individual. But in the class, I think after about 3 or 4 months of running the class, we were mostly going through all the 8 brocades in one evening. And they get very attached. I mean, it seems like the owl and the archer are the nation's favourite. I mean, they really are and people get very accomplished at it.
Mm.
And
we were chatting just before, didn't we, about about how you're saying that you can keep coming back to these movements as well. As people join the class, you can keep coming back to them. And those people that have done them, like say, are very passionate about them, you can still find things deeper in them, can't you? Because they're slow and we call them relaxing, or some people call them mindful. A lot of people struggle with mindfulness, but they know it's going to be good to calm down. Like say, they want to have that relaxation. That is, it's very important that we have that feeling as well to help with the movement. That these movements can really help, can't they?
Yeah, I was wondering about some of the step sequences we have in Tai Chi, and how you may have incorporated them into your class as well, Richard.
Yeah.
How they might link to some functional aspects in some people that you have.
Yeah. That if I was going to say about both stance and Tai Chi step, so both with the brocade movements and with the stepping and things, people tell you in no uncertain terms how much it's helped them. That's probably something that's emboldened me to do this, because I don't normally talk so much about what I do, apart from patients and some colleagues, but with the movements, I'll give you as a case study in a bit, but you can see people improving, and they talk about it all the time, and they improve, and it helps them to move more safely. I think with the stepping and the bow stance, probably one thing I'm very interested in, mostly because I've had people that I've known or patients that have had the most terrible injuries and have even died with falls, which is quite a serious matter. I don't know what the statistics are ever kept on this. I wonder if they are. But stairs are, even for people who think they're very able-bodied. But I find that the bow stance, the training, I would start I'm looking at my schedule here with my class, but we start the class, we do a little bit of rocking motion and things, but we go straight into centering and weight shift and bow stance and brush knee. And then I get them into the stepping gradually. It takes a long time. But the way that you're getting a base of support and broadening a base of support and giving you options, because you get midfoot balance, you improve the way that you move, and you take the weight off your spine as well. One thing I say in the class that makes people laugh is that most people do what I call a Wall Street shuffle, and they're stiff and they walk in this mechanical way forward. We all do it. But by the time they've learned the stepping and the side stepping and feeling with the feet and the technique that you do, Helen, in your video, which is they're beginning to move more playfully with their feet, and they're doing more of a swaying movement that you break down with your half steps and things. And they do more what I call, instead of the Wall Street shuffle, they're doing more the Harlem shuffle. It's much more graceful and more feline way of moving, which is very efficient. And it's funny, after a long, long time of doing that, it actually does change the way you move, which is rather nice, actually. So maybe it takes a long time. But elderly patients, I mean, it's very important for them. And they have increased, well, we all do, we get increasingly stiff. And we have to find a way to be safe. And the stepping, one thing I thought about was falls prevention and being more sure with your feet, but also actually climbing stairs, because the half steps or the crane steps, and I think Phil was saying that you can do that and pretend that you're pushing down against pressure, or you can visualize it. People then have more awareness, body awareness, when they're doing steps. I get a lot of people who live in very old houses with the elderly. They're living in houses with very dangerous steps, and they're even doing they like to do the steps because it's keeping them fit, but you don't want them falling down. So body awareness, all the training helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's just a nice way of teaching it, because I remember in rehab in the gym 30 years ago, we used to just some steps and used to go up and down, and that was it. But of course, this is far more. This is teaching people to coordinate and balance, and all the principles, the mindfulness, keeping the spine long, flowing movements, all these good things that underpin touching qigong. And
I think for me, Richard, this is also at the heart of promoting self-efficacy and a sense of autonomy as well.
yeah,
Which is so important because, again, people do want to maintain their quality of life. They do wish to remain maybe in a house that they've lived in for a long time and not necessarily move to a bungalow or whatever. There's the adage, isn't there, that as people move to bungalows, they develop bungalow legs, and lose weakness in their legs. So being able to kind of empower, shall we say, and enable people to get to know their body better, to become more aware of their body in time and space, to have these interesting movement patterns that come from a different kind of cultural milieu, and they're incorporated into this person's persona. There's these ideas of mastery as well coming across in terms of how people feel about these. As you say, someone can be given a set of quite rigorous neurodynamic exercises, but they might not be so keen on doing those at home. Whereas if they learn some nice qigong or tai chi movement, they feel empowered that, yeah, this is a way of moving that I really enjoy.
And with
maybe something.
With that, I would say that quite strongly that the neurodynamic release is safer and superior. And that's my experience. And I know that because I would not spend time on it, because some people have got lots of problems and I don't want them doing anything that's adverse at all. But with the with touching qigong, I'll give you a case study. One thing somebody told me the other day, they manage some care homes, and in their care homes they use touching qigong. So it's my mother has Alzheimer's and dementia, and I taught her to do that in her room, and she does other things as well. But she rarely does it because she can only remember about 3 things, at a time. So there's the application of it. It's not just it's across the board. It's very useful with the case studies. I've got a couple, and it's quite important this, because I was very naughty. I didn't actually read. I had that Peter Wayne book, and I never read it until the other night, because I thought, well, I'm doing this because I tend not, I'd flick through it, but I never read it. But I was quite amazed, because one case study, I've got had an 82-year-old lady with. I get lots of different people. There's things happening all the time, and it's not just 1 or 2 people. It's lots. It's hundreds. But I had one lady with. Very fit lady, did a lot of walking, but she's 82, very fit, getting suddenly a lot of worsening headaches. She's got degenerative spine, but vertigo, dizziness, no response to medication. She'd be to a doctor, ENT consultations, all at vestibular rehab. So she was falling. And although she's a brave lady, she was feeling unsafe to walk. And she got kyphosis, degenerative spine, some wobbly upper cervical instability, lots of things that you see, and a lot of tightness under the skull, the things that I'm used to treating with cranial osteopathy. And it was interesting, because when I was working on her, I started to use touching and qigong, particularly qigong, and she started to regain her spine lengthened quite a lot, measurably. And her husband's very particular about this, and he knew that it was. But it's quite a serious thing because her head and neck control improved. All her dizziness and vertigo that she'd had for 6 months completely went. And these exercises were very, very important because the hands-on treatment, although I can do it and it's very somatic and gentle, it's very limited. I mean, that really made a big difference. And she's a very logical, reliable lady. I mean, she had very strong views about this. And she was saying she wanted me to talk about it, to put this forward. And then she also had lots of things like panic attacks and depression because it was really doing her head in having these symptoms. So it made a huge difference to her. And she practices Tai Chi and qigong on a daily basis all the time. That's interesting because a case like that, when I read Peter Wayne's book, he actually gave a case history which was nearly identical. But when I read that, I thought, wow, it's not just me, it's useful,
Yeah.
And the other one, because I did get different ages, it's harder to get young people to do Tai Chi and qigong. You might get dancers to do it. You might get some highly motivated athletes, young people to do it. But it's a pity because it's not taught in schools. Although I do, when I get teachers, primary teachers, I'll say, well, you should do a little bit of harmless qigong, and sometimes they can. But I had one very important patient. I had a medical professional who had worked in IT 25 years ago. She probably never got over it and then changed to doing a medical thing. She suddenly had a lot of stress and she had a tremendous amount of neck and thoracic dorsal pain, thoracolumbar fascia, really gripping, really, really bad. And she was didn't respond to physio at all and had lots and lots of different therapy over a couple of years and ended up in a pain clinic. She was just unresponsive. She's getting very collapsed, contracted and weak. And I was working very much on her fascial system behind on the thoracolumbar fascia. And her anterior structures were incredibly tight. So I was working on those and her breathing was restricted by her ribs because they were all coming together. And the numerous other restrictions, limited neck movement, you could do all the usual tests and see that she was absolutely locked down and very upset. Very palpable areas of tightness, lots of link problems over time. So she responded very well to the acupuncture, but it was really it did objectively improve from session to session, but it really started to move away better when she started to do qigong and tai chi. So as soon as she brought that in, things suddenly started to move quicker. And she's a medical profession, she's very focused, she knew, and I could feel the changes in her body. So as soon as I started to get her to do these opening exercises, the two-hand hold the sky, all these opening things, and her level of compliance was very, very good. All the breathing approaches, Jing, Sung, everything. It really helped her. Her fascial net, the fascia is one organ in the body, it connects everywhere. It really changed. That helped it move. So when I see things like that, and I've observed these things, but with her it's very dramatic. It's very important in some cases to have these skills. So we targeted, qigong and tai chi forms for her, and it addressed the chronic stress, the stuck ribs. It just helped to unwind her structure, and she'd been on gabapentin for 6 months, and she came straight off that. So that was something I've done before. I've worked with people like this, but definitely those exercises were pivotal. They were very, very important. And then she joined the class, and she comes to the class, and then she'll probably leave the class eventually because they get so they know what they need, and then they move on. But if I hadn't had the class, she'd have been coming just back to do the Tai Chi with me individually, which I don't want to be doing. So the class is actually very useful.
Excellent. Thanks so much for those case studies. I think they really bring together the sort of the benefits of Tai Chi as a complementary approach to what you're already doing. It complements what's already in your toolbox, but it really addresses the psychological or emotional side of living with a distressing condition. It can bring on, so much like the depression, the anxiety, that just then feeds into the awkward body positions.
And you teach, as you both said, it gives them a strategy, it gives them something to do, and the compliance is very good with it. Pretty well across the.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's just been absolutely fascinating talking with you, Richard, and we're gonna slowly start to draw it to a close because time is pressing on. But I just wanted you to, perhaps you've talked about the safety issues and how safe you found Tai Chi and Qigong. Because, as a health professional, we want to know that we're safe and effective. What would you say in terms of what's your experience with the safety then in clinical practice? In terms of what would you say to other, perhaps you've got a lot of experience, what would you say perhaps to newer practitioners who are thinking of trying putting Tai Chi and Qigong in their toolbox?
Yeah, and it has to be said, because early on in my career, I probably would not have looked at this like I do now. So you want to get people earlier on. And of course, there will be more training coming in integrated structure, I hope, but there aren't quite the courses. They're very expensive and they're private, which is sad. But Tai Chi and Qigong is, you get the high level of compliance. It is very safe. I've had nobody falling, and I've had people in the mid-80s, people who have fallen, and with multi-pathology. So I've done all those classes and, for nearly a year, never had any bad things happen. You can modify things, you can get them to sit down, you've got all the tools to do that. So in a group setting, the risks must be very, very low, because when I did cardiac rehab, you used to worry about people getting hurt and you'd knock them up a bit. But generally, if you're doing the right things, that doesn't happen, which is why they like to come back. Probably one thing, because I do believe that Tai Chi and Qigong is very useful as working with clinically on an individual, where some exercises that are very classically given and that are easily just printed out on physio tools that people just give out, they're just generic, whatever, that can actually make people worse, or they can create problems. But mostly, if you do the targeted forms, you don't do any harm. You're not going to aggravate a nerve. You're not going to somebody with a chronic disc problem. You're not going to stir things up, because you want to make forward progress. You don't want the negatives. And half the skill is not having the bad stuff. So that's why I hold it in, quite high regard. So it's very useful.
Excellent. Yeah, lovely description of how it does bring together all those benefits and has low risk with it to boot.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and wrap this up a little bit. So we just wanted to say, are there any final thoughts as we draw this episode to a close? It's been absolutely fascinating hearing from you and how you've applied it in your setting. Any final thoughts and things that you'd add before we finish today?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that I wish I'd done it a lot earlier. Although I was in dance and I was promoting dance, which is Tai Chi's. It's a lovely integrated movement like dance. And I think the other thing is really promoting it with children. Because I don't know whether in China where they still make children do it, probably not, but It could be, we used to do music and movement when I was very young. That's a long time ago, and that's probably not done. But I think it's getting teachers, particularly primary teachers, to perhaps teach a bit of qigong to children, because I think if they were familiar with it, they would be easier for them to recognise it later on.
Yeah, almost like starting with life skills kind of quite early on, isn't it? Kind of giving teachers more and more things to do. But yeah, that's a lovely idea in terms of building that body awareness, that proprioception, and that self-care, that idea of self-care, that we can do things to take.
And children love being playful and feeling with their things. And perhaps it would, if they're stuck in front of computers a lot, it would give them a movement option, give them something that's useful later on.
Yeah, lovely idea. Thanks you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us and your very broad knowledge and experience as well, and your insights with us about how you use Tai Chi and Qigong in your practice.
So yeah,
and thank you for producing a very good course that I was able to apply right away. Even though that means going out of your comfort zone, doing a class, I would recommend it. And you just need a few people. It's good.
Well, thank you. That's very thank you. That's very generous of you to say that as well, Richard.
So thank you again to Richard for joining us, and thank you to our listeners for joining us. If you want to know more about adding Qigong and Tai Chi to your clinical practice, then do check out our other podcasts. And you can also check out our website and blog, taichiphysiotherapist.com.
Yes, thank you so much. And we're going to say once more, thank you so much for joining us, Richard. It was lovely having you. I think we should have you back, because I feel as though you've got a lot more that we could dive into, again, with that such a deep and broad knowledge and experience that you bring. So maybe we'll bring you back in a little while so that we can have a deeper dive sometime.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Take care, Richard.
Thank you so much again.